All right, so I guess since it seems like nobody's reading this Mueller report, they got his narrow behind up there to testify. I'm the librarian, and I came to read. Hey everyone, I know that not a lot of people like to think about what's going on in politics. I know it's a little bit depressing, but we definitely have to talk about it. I think that it's important. I'm not going to go into too much of the hard, gritty details of it, just because it's the testimony was 4 or 5 hours long. So I'm going to just pick out key points that I think we should really be aware of, especially since this whole voting season's coming up. Make sure that you go into patreon.com/AdrianExpression. In line with all these political issues that are going on, my patrons voted. I made sure to write about the 10 stages of genocide. It's a framework that was created by this professor. If you want more information about that, like I say, you can go to patreon.com/AdrianExpression, sign up, read the article, tell me what you think about it. So let's get into what was actually going on. So Mueller got his ass up in front of Congress and testified. Now, before he even went up there, he made sure that everyone knew that he was not going to speak outside of the scope of his written report. Now, that written report is cause of so much drama when it comes to DC and politics, just because when it came out, William Barr came out here talking about, he released this memo talking about, well, girl, the president has been basically said, the president, there's no collusion, blah, blah, blah. And Mueller had to go out there and say, that's not exactly what I said. So there was a lot of confusion going on. So they said, in order to just dead all that shit, bring Mueller ass up here and we're going to talk about it. In his opening statement, he said, and I'm going to be reading a lot more than usual just because I want to make sure I get everything right. He said that the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government. He made sure to cover. Now, the reason why Mueller is going through these questions, so if you watch the hearing, he was going through all these questions so systematically and with such precision to make sure, asking people to repeat the questions to make sure he did not speak outside the scope, like he said, of his written report. And the reason he said that he's not going to speak outside of it is because if there are ongoing investigations, he does not want to say anything that would jeopardize them. He also said that they did not even address the idea of collusion in a substantive way, but rather their focus is going to be on obstruction of justice. And I'll get on how that is just so alarming. People have been trying to get the general public aware. I mean, even it had actors and famous people breaking down the Mueller report. People have really been trying to get the general public to focus on this report. So also in his opening statement, he said that they did not make a decision as to whether or not to pursue charges whether the president committed a crime or not. The whole point of the report was just to gather up all the evidence, and Mueller was just literally like, hey sis, to Congress, y'all need to do y'all jobs. Basically gathered up the evidence, gathered up everything, presented it on a silver platter to Congress, and this is what they doing with it. They playing around in everybody's face with this shit, in my opinion. So now if you're someone who's highly informed and you've kept up with all this information, a lot of it may not be new to you, but I'm just gonna go down the line, a lot of main points that I found. So when Sessions told, apparently this was in the report, this was all in the report or Mueller's testimony. When Sessions told the president that a special counsel had been appointed to investigate all this bullshit, he apparently said, I think this was said by Sessions himself and corroborated by the notes of one of the aides. He said, oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my presidency. I'm fucked. Now, based on this report, based on everything that was going on, there were apparently 10 acts of obstruction of justice that were attributed to Trump. And Hakeem Jeffries, he's a congressman representing New York's 8th district. He really brought up these points in front of Mueller and they both talked about it, essentially saying when the president ordered Don McGahn to fire the special counsel and then lie about it, Donald Trump, now these are the 3 points that I guess constitutes obstruction of justice. He, 1, committed an obstructive act connected to the initial proceeding and did so with corrupt intent. So all of those things, these are the elements, that's what they're saying, of obstruction of justice. And if we go to Representative Cedric Richmond from Louisiana, I mean, they're just tagging his ass. He said, it's fair to say that the president tried to protect himself by asking staff to falsify records relevant to an ongoing investigation. And Mueller basically said, I would say that is this general summary. Now, I thought this other part was really interesting because Ken Buck, he's a Republican. I'm not sure what he thought he was getting to when he asked this question because, okay, so he said, could you charge the president with a crime? After we already established, keep in mind, after we already established what it takes to define obstruction of justice, the fact that there were 10 apparent obstruction of justice alleged to this president, alleged to his campaign, the fact that he's asking people to lie and fire people and falsify records. Ken Buck essentially asked, well, could you charge the president with a crime after he left office? And And Mueller said yes, and I don't think that was the answer that he's a congressman for Colorado, like I said, he's a Republican. I'm not sure if that's the question, I'm not sure if that's the answer that he thought he was going to get, and he repeated it again, and Mueller said yes. Now if we're talking about, okay, you saying that you can charge the president after he leaves office, why is that? Why can't you charge the president while he's sitting in office? Now Ted Lieu, he's a Democrat from California, he asked this question to Mueller, that you did not indict Donald Trump is because of OLC opinion that you cannot indict a sitting president, and Mueller said that is correct. Now the OLC is the Office of Legal Counsel. The Office of Legal Counsel gives advice to the DOJ, Department of Justice. The OLC has this policy. It's not like an official law or anything. It's just a policy saying that the indictment or criminal, this is what they said, the indictment or criminal prosecution of a sitting president would unconstitutionally undermine the capacity of the executive branch to perform its constitutionally assigned functions. Essentially saying that if you try and indict the president or try and lock the president up while he's sitting in office, it's going to completely just prevent the executive branch, the White House, from doing what it needs to do, from functioning how it needs to function. Now, like I said, that's not no official law, and that opens up the gates, since it's not an official law, that opens up the gates for the states themselves to go after the president. The state's attorneys general could bring some charges if the federal does not go through with that. The only problem with that is that the president, his lawyers can fight that in all these courts, and he could fight that all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it's just like he's over here putting justices in the Supreme Court and shit. It's just like, would that really be successful? That's the only thing. On the other side, there are Republicans who are trying to argue, hey sis, like, you're this prosecutor and you're saying that he's not exonerated, but in this country all people are innocent before proven guilty, so how can you go up here and say that he's not exonerated even though you also said that we couldn't find a connection? And it's just like, if you really sat your ass down and took a look and actually cared about the country and took a look at all the evidence that is before you, if you sat your ass down and looked at how he was calling out, Trump was calling out, hey Russia, if you can hear me, if you find those emails, Russia hacked the DNC, hacked some information from the Democratic Party, especially Hillary Clinton's campaign. So that means that they had information on the Democrats' game plan. Apparently they were also giving polling data to Russia, so not only did they understand what the Democrats' game plan were, but they had polling data. Russia was hacking the DNC. All of that together, we have all these corroborated instances of apparent obstruction of justice, and we see all of this, and my frustration is just like, what the hell, what is anyone doing with this information? I mean, Nancy Pelosi up there talking about, well girl, we gotta work together, we gotta reach across the aisle, reach across to your death. What are you doing, sis? Some people want to start the impeachment process, but Nancy's just like, girl, it doesn't make any sense because we don't have the Senate, and it's just like, girl, start the process, at least do something, at least try something. There's nothing, there's no reaching across, there's no working with, even if it's just to send a statement like, oh girl, impeachment, oh girl, and have more of the general public paying attention to what's going on, because right now all this wishy-washy back and forth propaganda type shit is hard to see through that shit, especially if you are a low information voter. What really stuck out to me is the fact that Mueller was sitting here and he was being asked certain questions about the specifics of this, Russia cyber attacks, Russia, all of that stuff, and there's certain questions that he could answer, you could watch the hearing, and certain questions that he could not answer. But one thing that really stuck out to me was the fact he was asked like, oh girl, basically Russia could try this shit again, and he said, they're doing it as we're sitting here now. That's what he said. They're trying it as we're sitting here right now. There are a lot of people who are relying on the fact that, oh, okay, we can beat Donald Trump. The Democrats can beat Donald Trump. That's not set in stone, especially if they have already messed with our previous elections. They've been learning. They've been correcting their errors. You know what I mean? They've been all these bots and stuff. So if you think that they're just gonna wait until 2020 to scramble and try this shit again, no, they've been learning from what they've been doing, and we just leaving the door wide open for them to try this shit again. So now I don't want it to be completely discouraging. I want us to be aware of what's going on. I want y'all to research your candidates. Make sure that you're registered to vote. We have to take action, and the more that you talk about it, the more people will be informed, and the less likely that we can be taken advantage of again. Make sure you research who you want as president, and not just president, all politicians that affect your life, every one of them. Make sure that you study these candidates, study their lives, study what they're saying. Make sure that you at least try to pay attention at some of these debates, or read up on the debates if you can't watch them. Just be informed and make sure sure that you're registered to vote. I don't know if I need to put this shit in the description box to make sure y'all click on it or something to register to vote. Maybe I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Something, because yes, we can do all this analysis. Yes, we can talk all this shit. Yes, we can drag Trump all we want, but we have to be aware and we have to take action. We have to get our asses up here and vote. We have to know who is going to be representing us, period. Hold these politicians accountable. So that's all I'll say on that situation. So yeah, I know that this was a very surface level kind of analysis of what went on at the hearing, but like I said, it's hours upon hours upon hours long, and I just wanted to downsize it into a like bite-sized version so that you can kind of get the gist of it, of what was going on. It's really nothing new. It's just that he's reiterating what was already in the report. It seemed like nobody was doing anything with the information. Elizabeth Warren, all these people, some of these Democrats were over here trying to say, hey, wake up, like there's a lot of information just in this report. Just because the OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel, says that you cannot indict a sitting president, you know, that kind of ties Mueller's hands, does not mean that we should just ignore everything that's in the report or automatically assume that the president is fault free. I would just advise everyone to pay attention to that, pay attention to the political crisis, the upcoming elections, and move forward like that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I know it was not a funny video today. I know it was very like to the point, hard facts type of shit, but we definitely need to have these type of conversations. Thank you so much for your support, and as long as you're not Donald Trump's toupee, we all can have a good goddamn evening.